I'm Nichole Daley, Master Educator with hairtalk USA and Weft Expert. I'm here today with my beautiful model Chantelina, and today we are going to showcase our tension placement with our Weft application utilizing hairtalk's classic beaded row and IBR. As we do this, we're going to show you where the hair is going to fall, why we would use tension placements, and what our end result is going to be. So we are going to take her front corners and we are going to fill these in and showcase the differences that each placement is going to give her, where the benefit lies, and how we're going to complete her own natural hair with a very simple 30-minute application. I'm going to walk you through. Okay, so each one of her corners here are they're a little scarce. They're not bad, but we want to fill these in and create a more full look for her. So in doing this, we're going to start with our low tension placement. So today we're going to show you low, medium, and high tension and what the benefits are of each placement. So starting with our low placement, we're going to go in and I'm going to take a horizontal section. This placement is going to be virtually straight back. We want to get this as straight as possible, okay? So low tension means that we are going to have little to no pull or any sort of tension on the client's natural hair. So this is ideal for your thin-haired clients, anyone who has a little bit finer hair or that you really need to be delicate with. This is a great placement for that. Honestly, this is ideal for any client that's behind in your chair. So with this low tension, I'm going to turn her slightly so you guys can see. So with this, we are going to have straight across. So we're going to get an even weight distribution from the beginning of the anchor point all the way to the back. Okay, so I've just done a horizontal section here. For today's application, I'm going to be using hairtalk's patent pending instant beaded row in a 5.5 inch width in the color dark. This dark color is going to give her a seamless application. For my placement, I'm going to make sure that I'm starting about 1 inch in off of her hairline to allow her some flexibility and to be able to conceal this weft after it's installed. Okay, so you always want to keep that in mind. So I'm going to hold up here, and again, I'm keeping about 1 inch off of her hairline, finding where I'm going to start my anchor bead. As we start with her anchor bead placement, I'm going to take my looper tool and I'm going to take my instant beaded row, placing one of the ends, either one, through my loop tool, keeping the thread on the top of my bead. So as I go in here, I'm going to grab a small section of hair. This is what is going to be really the foundation of our application. So this is where these anchor placements are really where all of our strength comes in. So we're keeping little to no pull on her natural hair, which is what makes this so gentle, and really this placement can be done on almost any client. So if you're questioning at any point what placement to do, I always recommend starting with a low tension placement because this truly can be ideal for any client. So as I go in here, each one of these beads on this instant beaded row have approximately 1/2 inch in between each bead. So that gives you proper spacing and it's already done for you. This makes for such a quick, seamless application. Really, this is something that you can do behind the chair in under 30 minutes and give your client an instant pop of color or fill in the corners, which is what we're going to provide for Chantelina today. So we're going to fill in those corners. So in this placement, I'm keeping everything horizontal. So as you think about that, it's going to mean that all of the hair, so not just the natural row that we're creating right now, but the hair itself, once we install, is all going to fall at a natural fall right along with her hair. It is very gentle. It has little to no pull. And it really keeps everything very soft. And if you have a client with a little bit more sensitive scalp, this is a great option for them as well. The instant beaded row that I'm working with today, again, this is a 5.5 inch. So we have these available in both an 11 inch and a 5.5 inch width to customize and just be able to do a seamless application with any one of our single or hand-tied wefts or double hand-tied wefts. So there's no cutting necessary. However, we all know that not everyone has the exact same shape and size. So if you do need to cut them, that's the beauty of this product as well, is that you can cut and customize this anywhere that you need to, being that each bead is knotted. Let me give a slight rotate here for you. Okay. So with these are Hair Talks. These are our classic beads. They are silicone lined. That right there is one of the important pieces to remember, is that again, these are all silicone lined beads. So they're really gentle on the hair, little to no pull, and they really are just, they're safe all around, and they give a really comfortable fit. In between each of those silicone lined beads is our nylon blend thread. So the beauty of the nylon blend thread is, for one, durability. And really with that, the other piece of that is that you're going to be able to color. If you need to do a custom color on a client, you can custom color this, and you won't have any dye. It won't color the thread. It also won't sit and absorb any moisture and let that moisture sit on your client's scalp, which no one wants that. Okay, on this last bead, we reached the front point here. So her last anchor bead placement right now is just a little bit shy. So again, one of the things that we can do with these is go in and clip off any excess. So you can customize this to every client. So if you get to the placement where you have a little extra, clip it with your nippers and keep going. So I'm gonna clip, and now we're completed. So this is our low tension placement. So we're gonna look at how this falls with her hair. Everything right now with her natural hair, you can see that this is all flowing down. So as I apply the weft on here to install, the weft is also gonna go with the natural fall of her hair. Now that we have the instant beaded row installed in and ready to go on Chantelina, I'm now gonna take our weft and get it ready for placement. So for today, I am using single hand tied 5.5 inch width with a 22 inch length for her. So I've already hand stacked these together just for a little bit of time saver. We are going to be using a smoked brunette, a rooted sunflower, and a Nordic blonde balayage for her colors. So we're creating some highs and lows. She has so much natural warmth, neutral, and cool tones. She's really got a great combination of everything. So I wanted to bring all of that together for a really natural look for her. And as I place these on, I'm gonna start from each anchor, and I'm gonna work my way back. With the hand tied, you really wanna make sure that you're holding all of the wefts closely together to make sure that they don't slip. So as you go to sew these on, you get a very clean application without any bumps. Okay, they're very delicate, but that's the beauty of a true hand-tied weft. I'm gonna go in with my clips, and I like to take my corners. I really wanna make sure that these don't slip and don't budge. So I'm gonna go in and create a little T on the corners here on both sides. This gives me good security, making sure nothing slips down. And you can see a little bit of that better. And I'm gonna do that on both of my anchor points, okay? Another little trick that I like to use is as I'm stacking single hand-tied wefts, I like to go in from the top traditionally to hold, but if you need some security, if you take your clip in from the bottom, that can also help ensure that your wefts aren't slipping and creating any sort of a bubble or any hiccup that you may run into down the line. Little time saver. So just like our IBR or our instant beaded row, I'm taking our nylon blend thread in dark, And I'm just mirroring that in my thread that I'm using for her installation today. So again, this is the same thread that that beaded row is made out of. And this is going to give a really beautiful seamless application. So for this, I'm grabbing I just want to make sure that I have equal lengths on both sides of my needle. So I'm going to even them up here. I'm going to go in real quick and just give a quick double knot. Okay. I love to kind of run the thread, mirror it, and just kind of mesh it all together and make it become one. It keeps for a really clean application here. All right, now that we have her weft secured in place, I'm gonna go in with my C-curved needle here. I'm gonna drop in directly behind the very first anchor bead that I placed back here. So I'm gonna peek in. I wanna see where that placement is. As I'm doing this, I always wanna make sure that I'm going in vertical. So where I'm inserting my bead through the top, I'm coming through directly below through the weft. What that's gonna ensure is that I don't have any weird little hiccups along the way, and it's gonna keep that weft as clean as it can for having the thread seam through it. As I'm doing this, you'll notice that I have this little tail of thread here. Once I'm attached on, I'm locked in here now. I'm gonna clip that little tail and keep that out of my way so that everything is clean and easy to control here. So just right above the knot, and I'm gonna discard that thread. So now that we're locked in, again, I'm gonna drop back through the instant beaded row. So I'm going in underneath the thread, and I'm going through the center of my loop that's instantly been created for me. And you want to make sure that each of those wefts stays right in place throughout this whole application. So if you need to stop and adjust your wefts, if anything is slipping, make sure to do so. I'm gonna adjust my clips up to the top here. This is just gonna make sure that everything is really clean and that I don't have any loose hairs that could get in the way of my threading. So I'm gonna do a little peekaboo here, and I'm gonna find that first bead, and I'm gonna pop in here, and I'm using my claw nose pliers. I'm utilizing the top hole, so it's a really nifty little way to do that. They also make a claw tool that a lot of stylists prefer to use as well. This is just my personal preference. So I'm dropping through the bead. So I'm incorporating hairtalk's classic beaded method in with our instant beaded row. This is what's creating and gives us the option for our seamless move up at 4 weeks, something that's unique to hairtalk's method of installation as well. I'm gonna go in and clamp my bead closed, giving a slight tug on the hair that's through the bead because I want to make sure that it's tight, and pull it back up to secure it in place. Okay. If you need to go back in and replace your clips down below, you can do that too. Always keep your sectioning clean. Don't be afraid to overutilize clips if you need. It will really make your end product that much better. The corners are truly the piece that is going to make or break an application for a client. And the reason I say that is because no one wants to have these flips or flaps of hair that are coming loose and getting in their way of styling. So we want to make sure that we're getting a really snug application here, but without putting any additional pull that's not necessary on her hair and on her scalp. So now that I've secured down my corners, I'm gonna drop back in from where I started, and basically I'm just backstitching. For anyone who knows some sewing terms, I'm backstitching back through. I'm gonna go in and continue on sewing through the center. So I'm going underneath the thread. I'm dropping down straight below. I'm also using my non-dominant hand here, my left hand, to go through and help control the thread. I'm gonna control that placement and help keep everything tight. So as I'm doing this each time, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna drop in underneath the weft and underneath the thread that's on that instant beaded row. And again, I'm keeping the thread up and out of the hair. This is gonna help you avoid any static, any loose flyaways within her hair, and it's gonna just make for a more seamless application for you and avoid any little knots that could come along and mess you up in your process. So we're gonna do this stitch all the way across, and what this is gonna do is give her maximum flexibility with it. I love the fact that we have the thread through each one of our instant beaded row on each one of those beads. What that's gonna do is give the client a little bit, it's gonna help with tension a little bit and make sure that nothing slips and that it's got a nice amount of give to it. So the thread that I used for this, again, was that nylon blend thread. And when I measured it out, it was approximately about two of my body lengths. So I'm 5'4", just to give you a reference point there. And so that was the amount of thread, which is a pretty good rule of thumb, about two to 2.5 of your body, of the length of your arm span. So I just went through my wingspan from end to end. Okay, as I'm doing this, I'm keeping all of the stitching and all of the knotting is at the top of the weft. If for chance you have your knots that want to slide down, you can go in and use either the end of your seed needle, or you can go in with the end of a tail comb, and you can use this and gently push that thread back up to the top. That's going to help make it so that your client never ends up snagging through that as they are trying to brush through their hair and ever run the risk of breaking through any thread. It'll also keep your seam much cleaner. Okay. I'm always pulling up with the thread, and that's keeping my, it's keeping all of the knotting up at the top for her. Fixing any little loose hairs along the way is going to make your job at the end a lot easier. So I'm just going to pull that hair down, again dropping through here. And I'm going to use I'm using my left hand the whole time here to keep my thread clean. So if it wants to try to coil up and wants to try to knot, I can keep it clean and tight. Got one little loose hair, there we go. Really, using your needle or the end of a tail comb is really gonna help for a cleaner application, and you can use it for so many different scenarios. So I'm gonna finish out this final anchor row here and finish out to the first anchor bead where I need to stop, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the finished result and where this tension placement is going to give her coverage. All right, our next placement that we're gonna go over is our medium tension placement. The medium tension placement is realistically one of the most commonly used behind the chair because it fits so many different clients. So this is gonna be ideal for most anyone that sits in your chair. It's gonna give additional coverage to help conceal the corners up front that may not be there. So for that reason, this is definitely one of the most versatile applications. So for sectioning, I'm going to do a slight dip. This is going to be more than our low tension, so I'm going to go in at a slight angle and I'm going to dip and get a nice clean section here. The dip that I'm putting on this is very soft, but it's going to be just soft enough that it is going to give us coverage in the front face frame where we need it the most. So I'm going to keep a really clean, tight section here. Pull her up, because again, we don't want to have any loose hairs, anything that's going to get in the way and cause for any sort of hiccups in our application as we go forward. Okay, I'm going to turn slightly. All right, and now we're going to do a nice tight bun and keep all of this hair out of our working space. All right, now we have a clean space here to be able to work with. So for this, I'm going to brush all of our hair down. Again, if you have any light little flyaways, don't be afraid to use a little bit of a light hold hairspray just to settle those down. The cleaner your application, the better. So for this, we're going to be going in again using the same 5.5 inch dark instant beaded row. I want to make sure that for the face frame, again, we're still keeping about 1 inch off of her front hairline, allowing for it to be concealed. So I'm going to take a measurement here, get a rough placement of where this instant beaded row is going to lay. Find my last placement here, and we're going to start in with our anchor row. So again, I'm taking my looping tool, going to go through the center of the 2mm silicone lined bead, keeping the thread at the top of the bead. From there, I'm going to go in and grab approximately 1 inch width on the placement here. I want this to be, I want to call it a squoval. This is a blend between a rectangle and an oval. I don't want sharp corners. I want it to be really soft so that we don't have anything pulling. But I also want to make sure that I'm keeping that overall shape. So as you can see here, we're about 1 inch in width. I'm going to open my loop tool, pull the hair through, and then we're just going to gently slide that top bead through. Trying to keep the beaded row, the additional beads, off to the right-hand side to keep them out of the way and clean so that they're not dragging in the hair, creating any static. I'm going to slide that up and lock it down. So there is our first anchor placement. In here, you'll be able to see that we have about a 1/4 inch section right here. This is hair pulled through. As we're sewing on the weft, this is the portion where you're going to notice me sewing through the hair. This is the only time in this application we're actually going to sew through the hair. The rest is all going to be done through the thread and beads of our instant beaded row. So as we continue on here, we're going to get about 1/2 inch in between each bead, going in, grabbing our U-shaped section here with my tail comb. This is much smaller than the previous section. I'm going to slide the loop tool through the center of that bead. Again, keeping the thread at the top of the bead. Now, why it's so important to have the thread at the top of the bead? What that's going to ensure is that as we are attaching the weft on, we are going to be sewing not only through the beads, but through the thread. So making sure that the consistency and having every bead with the thread at the top is going to make sure that everything on the weft is hanging properly with the proper amount of tension. If we were to flip this upside down in the application, we could end up with a lower tension point giving a zigzag effect, which and then would give a not so nice return for our client. So important to keep those all up to the front and all at the top. So again, I'm going to insert my loop tool through the center of that bead. Grab my U-shaped sectioning here and pull through. So this application, if you've been to any of our classes and you've got to actually play around with our classic beaded row method, you'll know that traditionally the application time for something like this is probably about 15 to 20 minutes to do by hand with needle thread to do it a la carte. The instant beaded row takes that application time down for a half row like this in about 5 minutes. So it does a dramatic decrease on your speed for your installation, which speed equals just more time and more money behind the chair. So that is definitely one of the biggest benefits of this application and of this new product. So with this, again, so we're using a color dark. These are available in light, medium, and dark. So they fit, there is something there to fit every hair color and every type. With that, they also come in a pack of 3 to a pack. So each time you purchase a pack of IBR, Instant Beaded Row, you're gonna get 3 pieces all in one pack, meaning that you have enough for multiple applications. If you're gonna do a side to side, you have enough for one head. I would always recommend ordering an extra pack. It never hurts to have a spare. You never know when a client's gonna come in and want to throw something in really quick and you have an extra 30 minutes to be able to do this. That's always great too. All right, we're gonna slide this right up, clamp closed. Okay. All right, we have 2 more beads to go here, so we're getting very close to the front. So as you can see, so we do have that slight angle here. So what this is gonna do is gonna create a very soft placement that is ideal for majority of any clients. Normal to thin hair, this works great on. A thicker, fuller density, this would work well on as well. So it's very versatile, and it's definitely one of the most commonly used placements. Low tension, but it is gonna give us a slight kick forward, and that's what we're looking for. Most of the time, our goal is to either create fullness around the face frame, or we want to create a difference in color and create something more dramatic around the face. So that's what this method is going to do. I'm back up to my very first bead here. So this is going to be my ending anchor bead. So I'm going to take a larger section, about a 1-inch school oval section there, a little bit of a square oval mix. Okay. Again, you can see the difference in size on the width of this compared to all of our interior beads. So this is going to be our ending anchor bead. I'm going to pull through. Going to lock this in. And then we are going to be nice and secure and ready to attach our weft and proceed from there. So here is our finished medium tension row, a slight dip, so a slight angle to the horseshoe, and it's going to give us just enough tension once we get our weft on to be able to fill in that front corner and give her a nice pop of color. All right, now that we have our instant beaded row in place with our medium tension placement, now we're gonna apply the weft over the top so we can get ready to attach and sew on. So again, I've taken my 3 single hand tied wefts just for the ease and the stackability. I've already gone in with my double prong clips and I've clipped these together. So I'm gonna go in from both sides here, attach on, trying to keep this as tight to that instant beaded row line as I can for a clean placement and sectioning here. I like to go in from the top down here, and I'm just basically dipping behind the thread and under the weft to secure these on. It gives it a nice tight placement, but without putting too much strain on it. So now that we have that in place, I'm gonna go in with my dark nylon blend thread. And again, I'm gonna grab a 2 wingspan piece here so that I have enough thread to get me from point A to point B. we're gonna loop through here. So just sending the thread through the needle and getting as even as we can. Okay. Using my little magnetic wristband, I'm gonna put my needle in place and kind of hold that out of the way so that I have it available and that I'm not poking myself or my client with it. Gonna throw a quick double knot in here and secure it. Mesh the thread together with your fingers just to keep it clean. And now we're ready to start. So I'm gonna remove my top clip, pull the hair up to the top here. Now I can gently pull this down and I can peek behind here and see the beads. So I've got the bead with the thread already through it that we've just installed. So my very first placement and my very first stitch here to lock in, I'm gonna go right behind this thread. So I'm gonna go behind the thread, under the weft, all three of them, split my thread open, and pull through. Using my non-dominant hand to control the thread that's loose and keep it clean. That right there locks my thread on. So now the thread is attached to the weft and the instant beaded row, and we can continue on from there. Gonna snip away this little excess thread, get rid of that so that we don't have to work around that. I'm gonna go in and give one more clip here just for some added security, especially since I have 3 single hand-tied wefts stacked one on top of the other. I wanna make sure that they don't slip. That is a very important thing. The worst thing that can happen is you get all the way through your installation and you realize one of your 3 wefts has slipped and it didn't get sewn into the group. We can't have that. All right, so now that we're secured on, I'm gonna loosen up and let go of that clip. And I just like to use my clips through the top to keep my sections nice and tight and clean. But if you choose to put them down, that's fine too. So for the first bead, I'm gonna go in. This is really where our security begins, is locking in our anchor bead. I'm gonna open up and pop open this anchor bead with my claw nose pliers. Or excuse me, I'm gonna use needle nose today, actually. And what that's gonna give me the ability to do is I can open this up and I can stitch right through the center of that bead, underneath the weft. And this is gonna lock this thread onto the beads. This is something that is unique to the hairtalk method. And it really gives a lot of flexibility and versatility for your clients for their move-up applications, and in just the overall feel and comfort of this method. I'm gonna go back in. Now that we're locked onto that bead, I can now complete sewing this corner on. So what I want to focus on here is I've left that inch of hair out. I'm going to sew the weft in through that hair. So I'm actually going to go in through the hair here, underneath all 3 of the wefts, split my thread, and pull through. Generally, you can get anywhere from 1 to 5 stitches here. It just depends on how much room both the client's head allows and the weft. So there's no rhyme or reason there. We just really want to make sure that it is secure, because the last thing we want to have is anything loose, especially on an end here. So keep nice, tight, and secure, making sure that you have all of those corners down. All right, so I'm attaching the weft through the hair and the weft. This is going to make sure that this is secure and that the end is completely snug and flush with the client's head. That's gonna make it so that nothing shows when they go to style their hair, and it's gonna keep it for a lot more longevity for your client as well. Now that we have her anchor beads attached and sewn down, I'm now going to backstitch over to my starting point so I can continue on with interior beadwork. So again, I'm just going to drop in behind the thread, pull through the loop here that we've automatically created for us, and lock it in. Now that I'm back to my starting point, we're going to continue on. So I'm going to open up my next bead here. I'm going to pop underneath, find my bead, pop it open, and we're going to send the needle through the center of that bead. So I'm going to drop in from the top, send it right through the bead, coming out directly underneath through the weft as well. This is attaching the weft to the bead. This is what makes hairtalk's method so unique, is that this is what enables us to be able to do a quick move up application. So once that is through, I'm going to go in, find that bead, and lock it down. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna continue on here. I'm just gonna finish my way through the interior beads, and when I am done and I make my way back to that first bead, we'll meet back here and I'll show you the finished result. All right, now that we have her weft complete, we've got her ready to go with her medium tension placement. So this is a more even placement all the way throughout the weft, which is ideal again for any client. So as we can see here, we've got a nice soft blend with her natural hairline. And now we're gonna drop her natural over the top to see how this blends out and what our result is. So this placement, again, is something that could be used for any client. It really is it gives you high results and great coverage, but again, something that is gentle enough to use on most any client. Let's spin so we can see the difference here. All right, so what a noticeable difference between the left to the right. Look at where we filled in and we've closed all of those corners, still making for a very soft transition for her and keeping that 1 inch off of the hairline. We've still allowed it so that she can pull her hair back and style any way that she wants. So again, medium tension, great results for most any client. So for the next placement that we're going to showcase today is going to be our high tension placement. Now this placement is something that you're going to find the right time and the right situation to use, but probably not going to be one of your most common and frequently used. So high tension equals high reward. What that's going to give is it's going to create a very full face frame and give basically the most kick forward that we can offer for her. So for this is going to be a very dramatic dip. So when we think back to our low and medium placement, we remember how far, what those angles look like, okay? This is going to be a very dramatic dip. We want to have a high reward with this. However, we need to know when and how to execute this to make it safe for our client's hair. Okay. We're going to keep clean sectioning here. This can be used both with a full 11-inch weft or with the 5.5 inch like what I'm using today. So we're going to keep this clean. We always want to keep our sections nice and tight and clean. Any little loose hairs are going to get caught up and just not be helpful for us along the way. So I'm going to keep this as clean as possible here. Any loose little flyaways, if you do have them, a little bit of a light hold hairspray is never a bad thing to keep behind the chair as well. it'll just help keep all of that little flyaways clean and out of your way and make your application and execution that much easier. We're gonna give her some cute little space buns here, or bun, single. I'm gonna clip that out of place. For this, again, I'm also gonna be utilizing the 5.5 inch instant beaded row to complete this application as well. Same thing here, no difference on placement as far as from her front hairline. I still want to keep 1 inch back off of the hairline. We still want to keep this concealed and give her flexibility and movement with it, but we also want to give her the coverage up front. So with this, I'm going to go in, I'm going to find my placement here, get my rough sectionings. So I know I want to start my anchor bead right about here, okay? For this placement, I want my anchor bead, it should be about 1 inch in width. So this is a little bit larger section right here, as we can see. So I want to have a little bit larger sectioning, and what this is going to give me the ability to do is to be able to sew the weft through the hair to attach it, but only on the anchor bead. Okay, so now that I have the end of my last bead on my looper tool, I'm going to slide the hair through the loop tool and then gently slide it through the center of that silicone line bead. Perfect situation here right now. I have a little too much hair, and the reason I can tell that is because my bead doesn't want to slide gently. If the bead does not want to slide gently on, it's a great indicator that we have too much hair, and that's not going to be proper for our beading sections. So that's always a quick little tail to be able to get you the right placement, okay? So this anchor section here is slightly larger than any other section placement that we're gonna use. And again, the reason for that is so that we can attach and sew the hair through the wefted hair through the client's hair to attach it for a seamless application. I'm slightly over directing this placement back, so I'm leaving about 1/4 inch off to the side of the bead, and I'm going to use that as my anchor bead, as my anchor placements for that weft when I get ready to attach on. Naturally, as the instant beaded row falls, we have about 1/2 inch gap in between each bead naturally, and with that, that's going to give you the proper placement and sectioning that you need. As I go in, each interior bead is going to be a slight U shape, about 1/4 inch. So I have, you can see here, the difference is about a U shape, okay? It's a 1/2 U right there. So I'm going to take that, that's going to go through the center of this bead. This is how I'm going to proceed forward with all of my interior beads. Each one of these is going to be that interior U shape. I'm using my hand here, I'm using my finger to keep that bead snug up tight with the hair and with the head for my placement. So as I'm clamping those beads closed, I'm rotating down at a 90-degree angle to clamp those closed and make sure that I'm not giving any extra pull and over direction with them. So I'm looping in through the center of my bead. I'm going in, creating my U-shaped section, looping through the tool and pulling through the bead. So again, referencing back on how much hair, how to know if you have the right amount of hair through the bead. Too much hair is going to get stuck. Too little hair is going to cause the bead to slip and fall down. So as you can see, this bead wants to slide down a little bit, indicating that I need a little bit more hair through that bead. So don't be afraid to pull the hair out and grab a new section of hair. The beautiful thing about the instant beaded row is that you can go and you can reopen these beads. So never be afraid to fail on these. You can always reopen a bead, readjust, make any adjustments that you need without really a care. So they're great for beginners. They're also great for seasoned stylists as well. Using my pointer finger to hold that bead in place. Going in with my needle nose pliers, I'm grabbing in, pushing flush to the head, rotating down, and as soon as I get that rotated down, I'm going to clamp closed. Slight rotate here. Perfect. I'm going to continue this process all the way back up to the front anchor bead. So again, just like all of our previous sectionings, these all have a beginning and an ending anchor bead. The anchor bead placement in a high tension positioning is going to be where all of the strength comes from your application. So with high tension comes high reward, but we also need to go in and think about the fact that that main anchor bead that's going to be up near her scalp or up at the front of her hairline is going to be where all of the hair and all of the weight is being pulled. So you want to first evaluate your client's hair and make sure that, for one, their hair is healthy enough to withstand a more dramatic increase in length and that push forward that we're going to create with a high tension. I would realistically only recommend a high tension placement on a client that has a thick hair density, and maybe even someone that's had some sort of extensions previously. It's definitely not ideal for a for a fine-haired client. This is really going to be putting too much pressure and too much pull on their hair and on the anchors that we're creating. Grab our last beads here. They get a little bit smaller, not as much thread. You got to kind of hang on to them. We're going to grab, pull through, go back in with my pliers, clamp closed, and we're ready to finish the last bead here. This placement is going to be right about 1 inch off of her hairline. And again, for this last anchor bead placement, I'm gonna take a slightly larger section. I wanna give enough that I know that I have hair to be able to sew through to attach the weft onto. So this sectioning is wider. It's about a 1 inch section, 1/2 inch to 1 inch in width here. And this is going to ensure that I have enough hair to be able to attach onto and to sew my weft in through this hair, as well as the bead. Give that a little pull forward. And then I'm going to slightly over direct that back so that I'm leaving about 1/4 inch as well on the front section here in front of that bead. I'm gonna go in, clamp closed, and now we are ready to get her ready to apply her weft. So as we can see, we have a more dramatic dip. The increase on this, as we think about where the hair is going to lie, is going to give us a very dramatic push forward on the way to the hair, and it's going to give us the best results for filling in a face frame. So as soon as we get that weft on, we'll be able to showcase that and see where that full result lies. So now that we have her instant beaded row attached here and we're ready for our high tension placement, we're going to go in and I'm going to attach the weft of hair onto the instant beaded row. I have 3 single hand-tied wefts that I've already placed together to make this a little bit more seamless when it comes to my application. So again, I'm going to come in from the front and I'm going to give a little extra security and get both of my ends attached. And now I can go in with my clips and really secure it and make sure that everything is in place. You want to make sure that you are making all of the pieces of the extensions, 1, 2, 3 rows there. I want to make sure that all of those are stacked on top of each other for a clean application. I'm going to go right behind the thread and place that clip so it's behind the thread and on top of the wefts. There we go, find the right placement there. Okay, so now that the weft is in place, we're going to go in and I'm going to take 2 arms width of thread. So 1 and 2. I'm going to snip that, and that's just going to be threaded through our C needle. So threaded through, equal on both ends. And we're going to tie with a double knot. All right. Gently run your fingers over the nylon thread. Just marry them together. All right, and now we're ready to start. So coming in, I traditionally always work from the left to the right, being that I'm right-handed. So I'm going to, basically I want to connect my thread and lock this in so we're ready for sewing. So I'm going to go in behind the thread. So I'm going to dip in behind the thread and under all 3 of the wefts. And I'm going to come straight back through. I'm going to open my thread. This is my lock stitch, and this is going to lock in my thread onto both the weft and the instant beaded row that we've just put in place. Now that I have that locked in, I can go in and take my loose string, clip close to the knot, and discard so we have a clean working space. At this point, we're going to be attaching the anchor beads and locking in the weft onto the beaded row. This is going to give all of the comfort and security and keep the ends from flipping out. So we're going to lock this down so that we don't end up with this flap. We want to lock that down nice and tight. So I'm going to be sewing through the hair that we left on the outside of our first anchor bead. All right, now that we have locked on our thread onto our weft and our beaded row, we can continue on by opening up our first anchor bead. I'm going to flip the hair slightly, get underneath here, attach onto the bead, pop it open, and then I'm going to drop my needle down through the center of the bead, making sure that I'm going underneath the weft, all 3 of them as I come back through here. Again, I'm always using my left hand to hold my thread, keep it clean, and more importantly, keep it out so it's not brushing along the hair, creating any additional static. I'm going to go in, close that bead, and continue on. So here I am locking in through the hair that we've left on the outside of our anchor bead, underneath the weft, and securing this into place. I can generally fit anywhere from 1 to 4 stitches through the hair, and that just depends on where your placement was as far as your anchor beads and the weft that you're working with. So I'm just going to gently pull. I'm always keeping my hands up with the thread and pulling up towards the sky to keep all of the knots clean and at the top line of the weft as we work through. Being that we have so many little moving parts in this application, between the clips, the needles, everything, I like to use my magnetic wristband. This piece right here, I can go in and I just use my magnetic pieces to keep my clips organized and my needle organized. So if it does drop, or if I need to get it out of the way and get my hands free for a minute, you have that option. So I love the wristband. It serves multi-purposes for me. All right. This is the last stitch that I can fit in here. This is a total of 5 stitches to secure this down. And again, you can get anywhere typically between 1 and 4 or 5 is about perfect. All right, now that I've sewn out completely out to the edge, I'm gonna now backstitch in and complete my sewing. So I'm gonna drop back in through the top, straight down, open up my loop of thread, pull the needle through, and pull back through the top. Now that I'm back to my starting point, I'm sewing underneath the thread, so I'm going to just slightly move my weft so I can see where the thread is, going under the thread, below the weft, and pulling through. Typically I can fit about 2 stitches in between each bead and keep pretty good symmetry. So again, I'm going underneath the thread here, through the weft, or underneath the weft, pulling through. I've now reached my second bead. This is my interior bead. Again, I'm going to go in with my needle nose pliers. I'm going to open that up, and I'll be able to continue on from there. Through the bead, under the wefts, all right, we're going to secure this closed. I'm going to find the bead with my pliers and clamp closed. And I'm just going to keep sewing through. I'm just repeating the same process through until I make my way back up to our final and front anchor bead. So I'm going to continue on with this, and I will meet you guys back here, and we will be able to take a look at our finished result and see the dramatic transformation that this is going to make on her face frame and filling in all those corners. Okay, so I've just completed the last stitches and securing down the beginning anchor of her weft placement. So with this high tension placement, we have a more dramatic dip and an angle coming back, which is going to give us a high reward on her face frame. So as you can see, we're about 1 inch off of her hairline, and we're ensuring that this is going to give maximum coverage. A placement like this is going to give us the ultimate coverage. So for the clients that have a finer hairline or want a brighter pop of color, this is a great option for them. As I drop Chantelina's hair down, we're going to be able to blend together and see how this fills in that full corner and really completes her haircut. So here we have a side-by-side looking at her before and her after. Perfect. Look at all that volume, the length. Look at how we've completed out her haircut just by adding one 5.5 inch row with a high tension placement. This has completely transformed her haircut. So here we have Chantelina's finished product here. So for her application today, everything was completed using a medium tension placement to help not only fill in corners, give us extra volume, and some brighter pops of color around her face frame as well. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Nichole Daley, Weft Educator with hairtalk USA. Find us on Instagram at hairtalk USA, myself at Nichole Daley Beauty, and make sure to stop by our booth for information on all of our show deals. You can also find out more information on products and education at hairtalkusa.com. We'll see you soon.